Yay! What's up, beautiful people? My name is Kevin Davis. Welcome back to a new episode of the Kevirsyle Network, where we talk about comics, movies, storytelling, and just have an all good, jolly time, and just have fun. There will be times we get off topic, which is completely normal as nerds and just people of madness. That's just have a good time. But my guest today is a comic creator, a writer, and a new friend I just met a couple of days ago. And let's please welcome to the show, Mr. Berto. Hey
Hello,
man, how you doing?
doing good. Thank you for having me, Kevin. I'm really excited to be here to talk about comics and what we have going on with the Reckoning and all the other cool stuff that we have down the pipeline.
Heck yeah, before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? What like your background in writing and comic creator, becoming a comic creator, and what's your inspirations?
Yeah. So I this is the just published my first book, The Reckoning, number one, one of six, and this is my first ever title. Um, I
Wow.
am a bit of an old dude, I consider. I'm 42, but I've been into comics since I was 8 years old.
Well, you're
And at the,
young. Come on now. You're young.
oh man, if you saw me, all gray, brother. That's all it is. But no,
That's just the wisdom hair. Come on.
I yeah. But yeah, I've been into comics since I was 8 years old. I used to go to the corner store and buy them off the rack, whatever was
Heck yeah.
available. I was a poor kid. I didn't really have money. Like anybody else, I was, a latchkey kid, and we didn't have cash, so I would just collect change on the floor or trade in cans and or do yard work for people next door and get my $5 here, my $3 there. And on the weekends, I just go to the corner store and just buy whatever's on the rack. And ever since then, I just comics became my love that I just kept up since then. I've never stopped. I've collected comics from the early '90s when I was about maybe got more serious when I was about maybe 10, when I started getting out more walking to school and whatnot. And then I had neighbors that were going to throw away their comics that they held on to when we were turned out to be golden age books that they were going to throw away, but I didn't know what they were
Wow.
worth. Yeah, and I just kept that going for the rest of my life and just never stopped buying. And then I went to school, moved to Arizona, got into doing recording and mixing for live bands in recording
Oh
studios
wow.
and stuff. At the same time, I was still collecting books, and then I picked up boxing. I was an amateur boxer for a while, and then I got into a car accident in 2012 on Christmas
Oh man.
Day and broke my neck, um,
Oh my
where I
God.
became paralyzed from the neck down.
Oh my gosh. Man, I'm so sorry.
Well, I mean, it happens. I'm not. It stinks. It sucks. But that's the way life goes. Things just happened. But had to move back home to Texas with my folks. I went back to school, got a degree in psychology and philosophy, and then I tried to get
Wow.
work, but I couldn't. So then I opened up a comic store, and that was going good for a while. But then I started getting sick, and I was the only one that knew how to do the comics. My parents were helping me run the store, but when I had to go to the hospital for about like 3 months, they said, "Hey, we can't."
Hey, what's up, Gerald?
How's it going? I couldn't keep up the store because they didn't know how to price the books, the Golden Age stuff that
Uh,
was coming in, and then we had to close it. And I was sitting on maybe almost a storage locker worth of Silver Age, Golden Age, Bronze Age books,
yeah. Uncle
and
Pops
I
is in the
decided,
house.
oh hello, and I decided to sell the books and finance my own book to finally say, hey, I've been reading it for so long, why not give it a try? And actually, it was because a friend of mine, Billy, who in Arizona, started making his own indie comics called Billy's Comics, and he just suggested, hey, well,
Wow.
why don't you give this a shot? And from then on, I just slowly sold some Golden Age books, some Silver Age books, brought the cash, went to Metal Ninja Studios, asked them for help, and they helped me learn how to script, write, edit, and then from there was picking artists, and it's been a phenomenal ride just to get to where I'm at, and totally stoked with the end result of The Reckoning.
Yeah, you sent me a digital copy of The Reckoning, and I must say it's very beautifully drawn, and I love the storyline. Um, and I'm going to be honest, growing up, I did not read comics at all. I didn't start reading comics until I was 2020.
Okay,
Like I knew Marvel and DC like from the movies and shows, but I never knew they were comics first. I didn't even know comic books were a thing. And like when COVID hit, I was like, I wanted to do something different, and I found out about these indie comics, and I was like, what is indie comics? And I explored the internet, found out about like Dark Horse and IDW, and even Boom Studios, and so many other places that I never knew existed. And I love Hellboy, and I even know Hellboy was a comic, and I found out that's from Dark Horse, I believe. And that
yes,
and even reading so many comics, I got inspired and wanted to like storytell and learn how to make comics myself. So I spent a good couple of years, good 3 years or so, figuring out how to write scripts or like how to get an artist and how to format a comic. I contacted like comic writers, like I put like how do I write a comic, and I was like I have to write a script like a movie or something. And the advice was like basically, but it's in panels. It's not just straight down the line. You know what I mean?
right.
And also I really love storytelling. When I got to the point of I got tired of Hollywood with all these rehashes and reboots and like no creativity in their bones, and it really got depressing. And so I was like, I can just do this stuff myself and make stories myself and figure out from there how I can get it out there and stuff. Um, and and that's how I became my own publisher and started my Arcfire series, and I have a lot more comics coming soon as well.
Right
And
on. Yeah, and you
yeah,
mentioned Hellboy. That is actually one of the biggest influences for me, for The
really,
Reckoning and for the art style, because as you notice, Nate Walkington, he's the interior artist and the artist of the A cover.
hmm
He has that Magnolia like blocky style kind of. If you look at the old
yeah,
Hellboy comics, where it's
yeah,
almost
yeah,
furious but more gothic. And Nate really just pulled that off right over really well. That balance of soft features for the humans, like in The
that is
Reckoning,
true.
you
It's
have the
awesome.
female characters like Marty Soul and Dexter. Those are more like softer lines and more relaxed vibes versus the hard-boiled detective Hector and his
hmm
partner are more shaded and heavier lines, and of course the demon that's possessing our antagonist. Um, Again, the heavy shadows and dark lines to give that brooding life of the room and the impending terror. And that's all like a Magnolia style that I loved. And Nate just was able to like do that himself, but give himself a little bit more wiggle room for his own style.
Oh yeah, man. And I've seen every iteration of the Hellboy movies. And I know a lot of people said the recent Hellboy is the most comic accurate. Have you seen the Hellboy, each iteration of Hellboy movies, and what you think of them if you saw them?
Oh, I've seen them all, yeah. So Ron Perlman obviously was the first one I saw. The
Hmm
first Hellboy.
Yep.
Great. I love Ron Perlman. His Hellboy was fun, and of course, um, with Abe Sapien and I'm always forgetting the girl's name. His love interest, still played by Selma Blair. Um,
I
but
remember the actress name. I forget her character's name. It never fails.
yeah, I'm always spacing out like a little, sometimes like that. But the
Hmm
David Harbour when he played Hellboy, that one
hmm
was okay. But what I did like about it is that they did bring in a little bit more on like how the BRPD really went into like
Mm.
investigating and getting into that underworld of the supernatural things. Like in the David Harbour
Yeah.
when they were like going after that troll that was in that kid and he pulled out the iron to get him. That's
What? Sorry. What Gerald said. The Reckoning is phenomenal. It's very beautiful. You guys should get his book. Seriously.
okay. Yeah, sorry, but yeah.
Oh, wait, sorry. You can continue.
Oh, but I did like the Crooked Man. That was a great movie.
Yeah, it was. I liked. Yeah. Ron Perlman is my number one too. Um, I just feel like he fits the role way better. If I'm going to be honest, and he just brings out Hellboy a lot more creatively. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Compared to the other two. Um, but yeah, I would have black with all three of them. But what Gerald said, your book, The Reckoning. Actually, we can show a sneak peek right now of The Reckoning. Let me
Oh
pull it
yeah.
up right quick. Let me pull it up right quick. All right, here you go. This is the cover of The Reckoning.
Now I do want to say that that left hand corner with that little circle. Yeah, I have now signed with Rolling Squid Bones publication, and so they are
Oh,
going to be
nice.
publishing the book The Reckoning. So this is my original Kickstarter little insignia that I had for when I first raised the money after I put the book out. But all future titles are going to be under the Rolling Squid Bones insignia and umbrella. And I'm totally stoked to be working with Gerald and Chad and everyone at Rolling Squid Bones. Um,
Heck yeah.
but yeah, The Reckoning is a great story that I wrote
Oops. Sorry.
about.
That's
Okay.
sorry about that. Yep. Sorry. Yeah. There you go. Sorry. Continue. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. So The Reckoning is set here in El Paso, Texas, in a
Ooh.
fictional El Paso, Texas. Um,
Okay.
and really, what the story's about is just about a guy named Hector. He's a detective in El Paso. He's
Okay.
newly promoted. This is his first homicide case that he's inquiring on. And the story just follows him as he's investigating these grisly murder at a strip mall church where a deal has gone bad and some supernatural shenanigans has been unfolded uh, throughout the story, and it's played straight. So it's kind of like the movie Ghostbusters, where it's a movie where they're going after ghosts, but it's played straight, like where nobody believes that these things exist. And as Hector is
Oh.
investigating, he's slowly coming into the world where, hey, these things exist, and the question that Hector has to start following is, what's worse, the people or you know the nature of like religion, belief, and morals, ambiguity, and where your place is in the world, because Hector's just a dude that wants to work and get a job. He doesn't want to change anything. He just wants to live comfortably, and he's thrust into a situation where he didn't want to live in this world, and now he has to navigate what he's going to do. It's really about like, you know, when life says, I know you had plans, but there's other plans for you that you don't want to do. And you can either choose to go with it, lay down, or just accept that things are going to go bad and just do nothing about it. And we're going to follow Hector as he investigates these threads.
Wow. All right, I don't want to show too much of the comic, but here's the first 2 pages of The Reckoning. And we can actually buy the physical book on your website, right?
Well, right now, the physical book can be purchased on Blackwater Market Comics and Collectibles
Ah, okay.
Coffee. Um, they are the only ones that have my physical copies right now. But
Okay,
Rolling Squid Bones will have physical copies um, very shortly soon of the first issue.
beautiful. And how long do you like story wise? How many issues you like planning on doing like with the Reckoning? Like, is it like like do you have an ending in mind, or is like how long do you think he's going to on go for the series?
Well, I have the first 6 issues already written. Obviously, issue one is done. Issue
Mm,
two is already being uh, drawn, but it's through 6 issues. But I do have about a good 16 other issues already pre-written that need to go through
wow.
editing and like copy editing and like story editing by
Mm,
the awesome editor Zeb Wells that I Wells Thompson, who
mm.
who is doing my editing. But I have about 16 other issues that we're going to break up. That Rolling Squid has an awesome plan to break up with into sections. So, but there are more issues, and we're just seeing how. Um, I just got to go through these issues one at a time, just because financially, if on my own end, it's getting these things put together is kind of expensive.
Yes, and yeah, comics is a very expensive medium. I know from firsthand as producing comics. In my short 3 years, I've learned a lot about producing comics, and yeah, it's definitely a big investment, but I believe it is worth it, especially if you one of those that love storytelling and just want to be creative and get your own imagination out there. Um, and like I got into comics, 'cause I want to inspire people and create a new avenue where we can just escape into a world and just grow our imaginations. And I really enjoy writing and looking at the art of different artists and how they bring out their imagination. It's like really inspired me to keep going and not to give up. Um, is it easy? Most definitely not easy. None of this is easy, but it's definitely worth it if you have that tenacity and that determination to want to do it and to actually do it. Um, and I'm, and as this and you said this is your first comic series, right?
That is correct.
What made you want to start with this story as your very first? Like what was your inspiration behind uh, this story particular?
Well, this story in particular, great. What really influenced me to go with the Reckoning, the first one, is that I have the firm belief that like if you're gonna go in all the way and go big. I know there's wisdom in like starting little, starting slow,
Mhm.
but there's just as much wisdom as saying, I'm gonna take this, leap of faith, and I'm gonna try, because it's as the famous Yoda of Star Wars says, do or do not, there's no try. And really, that's the way I approach this. I figured, you know what, if I'm going to invest this time, my very limited resources that I have, because I'm not made of money by any means, stretch of the means. I'm disabled. I'm completely dependent on other people for help, and I have I'm on disability, so that's a one-time paid check payment. If I'm going to do this, I got to do this in full good faith and give it a real hard and real honest attempt, and to do the best that I could. And I got one shot to do it, and I said this is going to be the story, because really, while the story is following Hector, the detective, into doing all this, the subtext is really more about not so much the monsters, the gore, or anything. It's really the perspective of where I'm coming from as a Latino here, Mexican American in a border city of El Paso, and where tensions are high, where identities are kind of being questioned, and where my role as a person with a disability and where I can't work and do much for myself, I wanted to use Hector and the story as a vehicle to give that perspective. And I really thought that's what would be great with comics, is because when you're reading a novel, novels are great. I love now. I'm a voracious reader, but novels, where I think they lack is that they can get wordy and then you get lost in like where like the low points where you're like, oh, okay, this is padding, and then you're having to like have this picture of what the character looks like in your head, and then when you see it like in a movie, and you're like, oh, I didn't. That's not the way I imagine it. But in the comic, it's also visual and literary. So as you're reading it and you're reading the emotions from the artist, that's why it's important to have a good, strong artist and art form to really
Mhm.
help drive the narrative forward, so that people can look at the faces, look at the situation, and feel that impact of impending doom, love, hate, sorrow, happiness, whimsical, fantasy, any of that. You can see that from the pictures. You can, and by the reading of the very limited speech that is on each panel, because each panel is prime real estate that you have to make very much use to tell everything. And that's why I love comics. And so when I did the reckoning, I said, I'm going to give my perspective of how I see life and my views of where I am as a person who has a disability and where I'm at, and having to make choices in life that I didn't, that where I was put between a rock and a hard place. And another way I phrase it to some people, and hopefully I don't demonetize you or get you in trouble or anything, but I always say, there's a rock and a hard place, but there's also
Mhm.
the option of shitty and very, very shittier, where the bottom is
You're right.
always underneath.
You're
And
right.
my experience personally has always been like, I've gone to the point where I'm like, well, it can't get any worse. And when I say that, Murphy's Law happens and boom, things just get any worse. But my prime, the way I operate is that life, the world's going to turn regardless of how I feel, angry, sad, depressed,
Mhm.
nihilistic, apathetic, or any of those other words. The world just keeps turning,
Mhm.
indifferent to my own needs and wants and how I feel. And with that, I have to decide, well, I can just sit here and let life pass me by, or I can do something about it because deep down, that's who I am. And really, that's what the reckoning is about, and what the story, and why I said this story is the most important and it has to be first, because each of these characters are thrown into situations where they just want to live their lives regularly. But now these forces that are unseen and even seen are putting them between the rock and the hard place, or the shitty and the shittier. And now it's going to,
Yep.
well, I can either accept it and let things happen to me, or I can be proactive and say, I'm going to fight against the current, even if it's a losing battle, because it's the effort that matters, even if the result is
Mhm.
not what I want it to be.
Agreed. I really love how and when you so you, when you put yourself into your storytelling. It's basically what you're saying. I really love that because that's how I do when I approach my writing. Is I always try to put like myself and like into my storytelling, and characters that I have in my stories are based on people that inspired me in my daily life. Because I always try to put like a message in my stories, telling you basically telling you if you go this route, you can end up like this, but it's okay if you don't wallow in it because you can make a turnaround if you go this route.
Right.
And art is it's a huge medium. You can have messages come in art in so many different ways, from movies to TVs to comics and even to novels. But it's just the way how it's just depends on how you do it, if that makes sense. Because you can drive people away, especially if it's I'm not if it's not like political or something, because that would drive people away very quickly.
Right.
And or if it's just dull and like not really hitting you the way it should, um, that can really back people off very quickly. And so that's why I always try. I don't. That's why I don't get into a lot of things and like, especially like on politics and um, like I try not to do the norm of what a lot of people do, and like rehashing everything and like trying to do something like somebody else doing. Like I try to be my own person and do my own thing because being you is what you're supposed to do, and not try to be somebody else. If that makes any type of sense, of what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah, of course.
Um,
Because the way I approach writing and with the comics and with the Reckoning, you
mhm,
know, there is there is truth that nobody likes to be fed like whatever they want. Like when they say, "Oh, I want storytelling, but I don't want to be, told this is good, this is bad. I don't want to be told
mhm.
politics." But the way I approach it is that like every perspective is lived and viewed in a completely different way. The way I
Mhm.
view myself as a person with a disability is completely different
Oh
as
yeah.
somebody with the same disability. They're going to view life different just because their circumstance is different.
Mhm.
Um, a rich man who's paralyzed from the neck down like me is going to have a different life than I am as a poor person living with my paralysis. And with that perspective, I want to be able to tell that story, but I don't want to beat people's head over their head saying, oh, this
Exactly.
is the message. It has to be organic and it has to be
Mhm.
thoughtful and very much in a way where you're able to look and say and empathize with the character and say, yeah, that would be weird if like paralysis, for example, in the story, as for me, is like what I tell people is I can't feel anything like physically from the neck
Mhm.
down because I'm paralyzed. But it's hard to tell people, yeah, I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything because it's hard to concept that. But the best way
Yeah.
I can do that is to say, have you ever slept on your hand and then go to sleep and then try to like grab a spoon or grab a fork or grab your phone, and then of course it feels unnatural. It feels fat and weird and numb. That's the way it feels in the body, but all the time. And but how do
Mm.
you show that in a comic? Well, you
Mhm.
just show by doing little nuanced things. And a good storyteller is going to be able to do that. And that's why with like uh, Wells Thompson and the folks at Metal Ninja, they helped me really to hone in on like that small subtlety and nuance so that it doesn't like overshadow the story of like saying, I want you guys to know this is what this is like. No, you're experiencing it with the character. It's not being told to you. And
Mhm.
what I do with the Reckoning and why I like it is that like as much as I do have my perspectives and like of this story that I'm telling, I do like having a lot of fun. And one of my best fun things is I love horror movies. And
Oh
one of my
yes.
favorite horror movies is Evil Dead, The Craft.
Oh yeah.
Um, I don't I like the new Evil Dead series too. And really what I wanted to do is like that hyper violent like struggle because like that's what I get out of like that's the struggle that I like in those Evil Dead movies, especially the new ones. The one that just came out was the one where it's the uh Evil Dead
Even that Rise.
Arise, yeah. And it's the sister taking care of the
Mhm.
her sister's kids as they
Yep.
get paralyzed, as they get possessed, and just that
Yep.
struggle of just like overwhelming odds and horrific blood and all that
Oh
psychological and
yeah.
physical torment. I love like watching as people can like overcome that with all those odds. And in the Reckoning, obviously, if as you've read, this story is for mature readers because
It
there
is.
is
It most
a
definitely is.
lot of
Oh yeah.
fighting going back and forth because again, as I go through life, I've lived it in its most boring times, its best times, but I've been through the ringer where I've seen some pretty heinous and ugly things in my life and bloody and ugly things. And when you're faced with that, it really affects you. But at the same time, when I watch the movies, it does give you that thing where like you see where the characters come on top and they're changed with the weight of what they've gone through. But that change is usually always for the best because it makes you
Mhm.
stronger in the end. Um, one example I could use is the manga of Berserk. I don't know if you've seen that or if you read that series.
I've s- I've heard of it, but I haven't actually sat down and read it.
Oh well, I don't read, but it's for anybody that's watching this. If you've seen Berserk, it's that type of story where the supernatural elements are very subtle and nuanced, and then once like you're in the sword, medieval sword, conquest anime, and next thing you know, you're fighting off the main character is fighting off devils and demons with a giant sword and a hand that is a rocket launcher, and it's insane. That character Guts is the name of the character, and
Yeah.
really that's what I wanted to go. That's one of my themes, is the struggle against the overwhelming odds and just that need to and will to survive, because really that's what really has propelled me as far as with my disability and writing this story, is that will to continue on despite no matter how bad things get.
Wow. I really love, even in horror, you put inspiration in your story. I really love that, and that makes me want to read more of your stories. So I'm really excited for the rest of your series. Um, if you could get any advice to like upcoming comic creators, writers, artists, what would the best advice you would want to give them?
I know this is cliche, but do it. Just do what you got to do. You know, don't wait. There's never going to be a perfect time. I mean, I'm still waiting, writing other projects. I just write, and I know it's just sounds plain, but just do it. Just write, and reach out to as many people. Like, I've been told no so many times. When I was writing the story of the Reckoning, I approached everybody in El Paso who was doing their own indie comics, and I was attending comic conventions, and everybody was giving me like, oh, okay, bro, cool story. All right, cool. Yeah, right on. Yeah, when you get it done, let us know. And then they just blew me off. And really, eventually, that's when I ran into Metal Ninja Studios, and with the artists that did my variant covers and Nate as my interior, it was just people that said, all right, well, if you're serious, if you have cash and can pay my page rates, then I'll do it. And let's do this. And I put my money where my mouth is. I put my own skin in the game. And I said, this is good faith. I'm going to do it. And it's just persistence and just going out there. And I'll tell you this also, I struggle with depression. I'm always doubting like myself with everything. And so I always hear the voice of like, this is gonna fail. This is gonna fail. What are you doing, man? Just stop what you're doing. But again, it's that theme of like the world's gonna turn regardless,
Hmm.
and you're either gonna do it or you're not, and you're gonna regret it if you don't do it now. So I would just go and do it and reach out. And like for myself, I tell people, and I always when I meet people in conventions here locally, or if I speak to somebody online and they ask me if they're looking for me for page work or from other artists, or if someone's like, hey, how'd you write your story, I'll tell them like, hey, call me. I give people my phone number, just like call me and we'll talk comics, and I'll tell you what I did exactly. I'm not one of those guys that like to throw the ladder up behind me. And don't get this twisted, I'm not special, I'm not particularly good, I think I'm still, this is my first book, but it's that perspective of like wanting to do the extreme best that I can. And I got lucky that with Metal Ninja Studios and meeting up with Rolling Squid Bones, and throwing them my book and how they read through it and said, "This is great." And that was luck on my end, but that luck came because I put myself out there, and if you don't do that, then nothing happens. So
Hmm.
whether it fails or it succeeds, that's irrelevant. It's the effort that matters. And that's what I would tell people, is just do it and find somebody that you like. And if they respond, just keep asking them questions and just try to like just be with them and understand that they might be busy. But like for me, I'll always respond as soon as I can to people. even if I'm busy with other things, just because I have other books that I'm writing. I spend time for my mental health, going outside with my dogs, and trying to do my best because I do suffer from depression. So I do have those days where I gotta like walk away and just kind of like say, okay, collect myself, and then come back and try to give my best efforts to help as many people and do my own thing at the same time.
I love that. And also, good advice: be aware of scammers too, because there are a lot of them too. Unfortunately, um, especially those that's trying to use AI. So you have to be really careful when you're talking to people, and have you have to have a keen eye to know what's real art and what's AI.
Yeah, I really don't support AI all that
Mhm.
much, but I do have questions about it and where it can be used and available. Only
Oh
just
yeah.
in the yeah, because the thing is that in my experience when I was trying to find artists, and this is where like I have like this gray area where like I don't want to use AI. I
Mhm.
believe that it's soulless, that it doesn't
Mhm.
really do anything for any artistic merit. But
Mhm.
one of the problems and questions that I have is that when I was writing my story and I was approaching artists, I was, saying, well, how much is your rates? And I was being told, oh, it's $600 a page. Or I was being told, yeah, it's going to be $600 a page, $1,000 a page. And I don't know if they were being serious or if that was just to get me to look away, to go away. But as creating comics is expensive, I see why people are like, well, I'm going to use AI because this is too expensive. Like, how am I going to create a comic if I can't pay an artist because I don't have money? And while that is a valid question to ask, that's also a really big cop out and cheap also because you will find artists that you can work with financially.
Yeah, you
Just kind of
can.
like be upfront and say, like with Nate, I told Nate, hey, what's your page rate? If I can pay it, I will pay it. You tell me. I'm not going to tell you what you're worth. And if I can pay it and when it's within my ability, I will do it and I will make it happen. So hence I sold Golden Age books. I was at convention slinging old back issues that I had to raise money. And then I would tell Nate, okay, here's the money I collected. Hey, every month I get X amount of money in disability. With your page rates, can I give you X amount of money and then you send me X amount of pages, and we work on that route.
Mhm.
So did it take a little longer? Yes, because the reckoning took me about maybe 2.5 years to get finished the way I wanted it. But I picked Nate because his was the most affordable rate and
Mhm.
he wasn't using AI. And then I got the other artists. They were more experienced. So they commanded a higher dollar amount, which was fair because they are where they are, because they're some of the best artists that I've met. Francesca, she's an amazing artist who did one of my variants. She was very gracious enough to do a cover. Ray Dillon was another. He works with like other companies like DC Comics and his wife as well, and they have earned their page rates. So they charge me a little more for their covers. And I said, if I want to put out a quality product, I have to go that route. So do what I can. But if I can't afford it, then I'm just going to stay in my financial lane and I'm going to
Mhm.
make the best with what I can. So if the art isn't where I want it to be, then I got to make damn sure that the story I'm telling is going to be that much better. And at that point, well, then I'm going to take whatever finances I have and I'm going to pour it into myself, into reading books, whether it's, you know, Bram Stoker's, any of the old, like philosophy books from Nietzsche, Heidegger, Kierkegaard, Sartre, Camus, any of the existentialists and the nihilists, uh, philosophers, or the literaries of Dostoevsky or Shakespearean plays and whatnot, and get inspiration with how they tell their stories and write a better story from my lived experience. And so AI can definitely be something that I think can help with someone who doesn't know what they're exactly looking for, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't use it for something to sell. I don't know if that makes sense. Like so, like using it to get like a base idea of what you want to do, I
Like
think that's
you
okay.
can use it as a reference.
Yes, like if you want to do a character design
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, I want them to look something like this, but you got if you're gonna put a book out, you got to have a human hand do it because
Oh
that's
yeah.
where the humanity behind the story is gonna be done. But
Oh yeah.
don't let your final product shouldn't be AI because that robs the
Exactly.
humanity of the story.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly on that. And using AI, I think is very lazy. If I'm going to be honest, if you're trying to use it to like sell, I'm like, I was like, but people don't realize you're basically stealing art from actual artists,
Oh
because
yeah,
they use AI to generate like these corporations steal art from artists and put in AI and generate it. Like you're stealing from artists, and that's very lazy and it's not right. That's why I'm like I'm a big no AI person. But if you try to use it as a reference, it's like to try to like show your imagination. Sure, I guess. But if you're trying to sell it, that's a big no for me.
right, and
And
that's why I say like it's great for that reference, but
yeah,
not if you don't. You know, it's great for the beginner that doesn't have the money to pay an artist for like character sketches. You
yeah,
know, if you want to save your money to say, all right, I'm gonna do a great interiors, but I can't pay for the character sketches, and I got to cut corners. All right, I can, and like it's someone like me who's like, hey, I make only like $1,000 a month. You know, that's forgiving. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like it's
Oh
like,
yeah,
okay, as long as you're paying an artist to do the actual product, that's where it is because like I said, AI has no soul. But the scammer aspect, that was one of the other things like I did early on, hire some
mhm.
artists and I paid them their page rate before I found Nate. And then I paid them some money and then like months later I'm like, hey, where are my pages at? And they're like, never responded. And I'm like, that
Oh my
sucks.
God.
But again, you know what? I got mad. You know, I get mad at that moment, but you just move on. And I just like I'm very
Oh
much
yeah.
pragmatic where I take the punch, I take it, and then I move on.
Oh
There's no
yeah.
sense in dwelling in it, and that's why you know it I do tell people be careful. There are scammers, but hey, take your licks, take your punches. It's gonna happen. You're gonna have disagreements with editors and artists. If you can't work with somebody, that's totally cool and fine. Just keep yourself going.
Creating characters with AI, yeah, it is lame. I agree wholeheartedly. It is lame and it's lazy.
Agreed.
It's like so, yeah, we both agree on that. It is very much lame. And also, since she said you love horror and it's spooky season, and this question go out to the to the audience if you want to jump in the conversation. What's like your favorite horror comic, movie, or TV show you would go to during spooky season or even year round that you love watching or reading?
I'll start with this one. My movie that one of my absolute is The Craft.
Nice, nice. I just saw the Craft recently. Yeah, I just saw the original Craft movie.
Was it the sequel or the first one?
No, the very first one. I just saw
Oh,
the
with
first one.
oh yeah, with
Yeah,
Faraza. I oh Faraza. Oh,
yeah.
Faris.
I saw the sequel first, but then I just saw the first one to understand what the Craft is about. And the first one is so much better, if I'm going to be honest.
Oh yeah, I mean I love The Craft, and that's kind of like that was one of the inspirations behind also the Reckoning because there is a bit of witchcraft going on, and I just love the concept of like every spell has a cost
Oh
associated
yeah.
with it, and that cost is usually at best it's neutral at best, but at work, you know, for the most part, there's always a cost, and if you're gonna deal with witchcraft, it's got to be like very nuanced and subtle because no one's going to lend out their power without wanting something in
Oh
return.
yeah.
And
Oh
if they
yeah.
want in return is like devout, you know, prayer or offering, you better know what you're signing.
Oh yeah. Most definitely. especially dark magic, because that goes off wild very quickly. Especially you don't know how to control or know what the hell you're doing with it.
Oh yeah,
Um,
which is like one of the reasons, like one of the recent shows that I watched was the Ironheart show from Disney
yeah,
Plus.
Marvel.
And the
Yeah,
reason why I bring that up is because, like, again, it's that whole uh, taking the deal, you
yep,
know, that has that unintended consequences that
yeah.
people don't think that, like, because really that's that's what is the most sinister end of Mephisto. In the end, it's just like he'll promise you the world, but like, and you'll get it, but that
What's the
twist
cost? That's the question.
is that cost, and is it worth it?
Yeah.
And when I saw the ending of Iron, I was like, ugh. I'm kind of glad they went the way they went. So I thought they'd play it safe, and I'm kind of glad. Some Disney shows they kind of end up where I'm like, you're playing it safe. But with Ironheart the ending, I was glad they went that way because that was definitely a really like, I really want to see where she ends up now because this is
I
not going
did.
to end up
Yeah,
good.
I did too. It's going to be very interesting how Marvel connects all of this because they've been very disconnected since this saga or whatever you call it. But yeah, I legit thought they was gonna have Mephisto and like Agatha, but it actually made sense how they did Ironheart, especially with the technology and magic.
Right,
And I
and
was like, that
it
was
made it.
really
That's
I'm
what
like
made the
that was
show
actually
awesome.
pretty
It was
cool.
so different.
Yeah, so I'm like I didn't really expect that, but I look forward to seeing what they do next with it. Um, and what about like horror comics that you like? You do have any favorite horror comics?
Well, I like horror comics. Hellboy is one of my favorite. I did like, I'm a '90s kid as well. Spawn, for all its
Oh
bombastic
hell yeah! Oh
and
yeah!
stylistic, the stories, the first 10 issues I thought were the best of the arc, and that's because Todd had the other writers like Neil Gaiman and the guy from Cerberus. Oh, I keep forgetting. Uh, Sims is the last name. Um, wrote some of those stories, so I really enjoyed those. But as far as horror, I really dig manga as far as those goes, like Berserk, Helsing, um, a little bit of the older stuff like Yu Yu Hakusho. That was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid watching old school anime.
Oh
So
nice.
when I saw those were my big influence for like horror comics and anime and mangas. Um, and then Hellboy and anything done by Bernie Wrightson, so Swamp Thing, Constantine,
Cool.
the Sandman series by Neil Gaiman was phenomenal. And of course, I did like the old school Werewolf by Night and Tomb of Dracula stuff that Marvel was doing in the Bronze Age, and the Golden
Heck
Age stuff,
yeah!
the pre-code horror stuff as well.
Wow. A lot, my horror I go to all the time is Halloween, obviously. um, Evil Dead series. Um, as I go to the John Carpenter's The Thing. Um, I sometimes go to The Exorcist, but not often. But sometimes I go to The Exorcist. Like I get inspiration from The Exorcist because how they wrote it. It was really very intense. Um, I'm not talking about Exorcist Believer. I didn't really like that one. I'm talking about the very first Exorcist movie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Um, TV show wise, I mean, TV show wise, I don't really go mostly like Stranger Things or shoot, Charmed. I even go to Charmed.
oh yeah.
Uh,
I did get into Charmed a little bit. That I said, I was when
yeah,
that show came out, I kind of dropped out a little bit around my eight.
yeah.
Like 'cause I started watching, like that's when I started getting into like the edgy stuff. And when I was
Mhm.
a teenager by the time Charmed came out, so I was like, I started losing my attention. But I like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That was also awesome. one of my favorite movies.
I just started watching Buffy for the first time.
Yeah, and actually, that was another one of the inspirations for The Reckoning, which is why I brought in the witchcraft aspect because I liked the craft. And then when I saw the craft, right around that time is when I also saw that there was a movie called Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and
Mm.
then the show with Sarah Michelle Gellar. I totally got bought in on those series, and when I was writing The
That's awesome.
Reckoning, I was like, I totally got to do this because you know, one, I loved Buffy. I loved the Watcher and the Slayer, and then the witchcraft aspect, and that secret organization of the Watchers. I was like,
Mm.
that's really cool, and I kind of wanted to like do something similar to like to explore some of those themes and issues that Buffy was going through in the series. And another little side thing is like, I'm also a big fan of like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which
Oh
is
yeah. Oh yeah.
an old like I have like the first appearance in Archie's Madhouse 22, and I
Oh
have
wow.
like a first solo issue from the Bronze Age. Um, I liked Salem the Cat from the old ABC series, which was
Oh
Suddenly
yeah.
Talk
Hell
all
yeah,
the time,
dude.
and he was a bit of a smart ass on the show. And
True.
honestly, I'm gonna have to say like shamelessly when I was writing The Reckoning, I'm like, I want my own little Salem. So enter Dexter the Dachshund.
That's freaking awesome.
But I didn't want him to be a
Right.
copycat of Salem, but he's gonna
Right.
have his
Right.
personality. But I wanted to have a character for Marisol and for Hector and the rest of the characters that are introduced
Yep.
in the Reckoning to have something to kind of like give a bit of color as far as like humor, a little bit of naive humor,
Oh
so that the
yeah. Oh
story
yeah.
isn't so dark all the time.
Oh yeah.
Because what I will say with the Reckoning is that when I don't know if you remember when we started talking, like when you don't think things can get worse, then it gets worse and it
Hmm.
gets worse. And with what I can say about the Reckoning from issues 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6,
Yeah.
every issue, the escalation in the stakes, the violence, and the dread gets higher and higher and higher as you go along, and things
Mm.
just get like, Jesus, how is this gonna work out? And you know, I don't like being a downer, so Dexter the Dachshund is kind of that little like the humanity, the good that he brings out the good in the characters, where he's like, hey, yeah, things are gonna be bad, but I love you guys, and I'm gonna do my best to be with you guys.
Heck yeah.
And the best thing is like, dachshunds or wiener dogs are little guys,
Hmm.
and they're the second most aggressive breed in the world, and I think that's hilarious. So I'm like, that's gonna be Dexter's role because as much as he's small, a hot dog sausage, stubby 6 inches off the ground, you
Hmm.
don't mess with dachshunds. Those dogs were bred to hunt badgers and other smaller animals in their own burrows and homes. And I have a dachshund, and my little dude has been attacked by birds of prey, like hawks, that
Oh
swoop
man.
down to pick up rodents and rabbits. He's been
Oh
attacked by
wow.
that, and he fought them off. Bigger dogs ripped off his left ear, and he fought them off. And that's when he was like maybe 2 years old, so he wasn't even like full grown yet. And he was just the little guardian of his backyard because his name is Star Lord.
Oh wow.
And
Wow.
you know what? For being going through all that hard stuff, he
Mm.
is the most loving marshmallow of a dog I've ever had. Because like he loves people and he loves playing with other dogs and other animals. The violence that he
Wow.
experienced from these attacks did not change his personality. He is just the best boy ever.
Heck yeah. That's beautiful. Um. Well, before we get it, do you have like an estimate where we can like get a physical copy of your comic, The Reckoning?
Well, RollingSquidBones.com, they got digital copies on their website of the first issue. Um, I sent them a Spanish version. So if anybody speaks Spanish, there is a Spanish version. There's an English version. And right now, I've sent the editors copies of the Reckoning physical. So they'll have some on them when they hit cons. And you can
Ooh,
visit Blackwater Market Coffee and Comics.com or BMW or BWCcomics.com, and they will have physical copies of The Reckoning in their store, and their shipping and their coffee are top notch. Shout out to
beautiful.
Micah because that's one of my friends that helped me at runs that website, Blackwater Market, and he is a fan of comics as much as I am, and he's the one that helped me format my book and helped me with some of my graphics. And the dude like packs up his books bomb proof, and if you order a book because he has the copy of The Reckoning, he'll send it to you in like the best packaging ever.
That's freaking beautiful. Where can we follow you to get like updates about your work? Like, you have any socials, Facebook, Instagram, or anything?
So you can find me on Dash Comics on Instagram, Facebook, and my website, which is dachcomics.com. And you can also find me personally at Humberto Avila on Facebook and on Instagram. And what I would tell people is reach out to me, send me pictures of your dogs and cats, because I will post them and say I love this dog and cat. Uh, if you have any questions or if you have anything you want to send talk about, or if you want to just talk comics, find me on dashcomics.com. Reach out to me on Facebook, and I will talk to you about horror comics, fantasy comics, romance comics, comedy comics. I will just talk to your ears off for hours on end and give you whatever help I can give you. I am an open book. I will not say no to anybody for their help or advice. Or if they have anything they want to share, what I will say is that, like in The Reckoning, my first book, I do have ads in it. Nobody paid any pages for those ads. I paid for the pages in the book because I believe that I need to support my local community and help everybody reach their goal regardless of what they're doing. As long as it's ethical, I will put an ad in my book. So if you're an artist and you're looking to like get yourself out there, hit me up. Yeah, maybe I'll use you for some concept art, or I'll show you to people that are looking for artists. If you're a writer and you want to help me write something, hit me up and let's see if we can work together. If you have your own book and title, send it to me and make a flyer. And if I can put it in one of the pages and an ad page, I will. If you're a mom and pop shop, a comic book shop, anybody, hit me up, make your ad page, and I will put it in my book. As long as it's all ethical and above board, I want to help out and be a resource as much as I can at no cost to anybody.
Heck yeah, that's beautiful. And I am Kevin Davis, and you can find me on Facebook at I am Kevin Davis CEO. Instagram, I am Kevin Davis Official, and my YouTube is Kevirsyle Entertainment. And this has been a new episode of Kevirsyle Network. Berto, thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure to get to meet you and talk all things comics. And I really love your book Reckoning. Thank you for allowing me to read it, and I can't wait for more.
Thank you so much, Ken. I truly appreciate the opportunity, man. Again, I thank you, everybody that is listening, who has picked up the book, or who has given me a chance to talk to them, or who are going to look into any of the socials. I appreciate it, and big shout out to Rolling Squid Bones and all of everybody down there that have given me the opportunity and have read my book and have included me into their publication. It means so much to me, and I hope to keep doing the best. And again, anybody reach out to me, and I will help at the best of my abilities. Uh, Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so we'll see you guys later.
Peace.
If you missed the live viewing of any Madness Entertainment Group production, you can find all our content on Roku or as a member of this channel. We'll see you next time on the Madness Entertainment Group.